All right. Good morning, Jesse.
Morning, Warren. How are you?
Good, thank you. This is Jesse Cushman with this really cool company called Papabubble, and I'm super excited about this interview today. It's going to be very fun and enlightening, and it's going to probably make everybody hungry. So that's cool. So, Jesse, tell me about Papabubble. How'd you end up with this business, and tell me your story.
Sure. First, just to tell you about Papabubble, it's a franchise. Based in Barcelona, there are about 35 stores. Most of them are in Europe and Asia. We're the only one in North America right now, um, which is very cool. And we do artisan candies, everything from your hard rock candies with the characters inside to lollipops to marshmallows to gummies to chocolates. We are always experimenting, and I always tell my team, if somebody wants it, we'll try to make it, right.
Yeah.
At least in a candy sense. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. I mean, I've been so after business school, I've been an entrepreneur since then, but I would say I'm more of an execution entrepreneur. So I'm not really the ideas guy. I'm more of the make it happen guy. So
Hmm.
I had been a CFO after uh, business school for about 8 years. COVID happened, and so I was looking for a job. I ended up starting my own recruiting firm, which has done very well. And then, I was looking for something else. I really like palpable products
Hmm.
and, finance in general, I guess recruiting too. It's at the end of the day, you have a product, but it's more of a service than a product. So looking for something to get into, and the fact that I'm less of an ideas person, more of an executor, just screamed like franchise to me.
Hmm.
And so my son and I would watch these oddly satisfying videos on YouTube, and every time the candy chopping videos would come up, we were just enthralled. And I saw a logo once in the bottom of the screen. I emailed the CEO, "Why aren't you in the US? You make a killing." And he's like, "We're trying to get back in. Why don't you send me your resume? You should start a franchise." So
Hmm.
the rest is history. That was in November of 2021.
Okay.
And then we filed for the start of the company in February of 2022.
Well, I've never had this before where I'm talking to somebody where they're like, well, we watched these cool videos with my son. And so I ended up with a franchise.
Yeah,
That's pretty great.
yeah, yeah. It
So,
was. I think like many during COVID, I was left sort of looking for what um, the next step would be, and so you know, both in terms of like the opportunity presented itself, and I was ready at the right time, and it just kind of was pretty fortuitous. So
that's great. So I like you describe yourself as a more of an executor than an actual idea guy. So
yeah.
can you give me some wisdom on franchising versus starting your own business from that perspective?
Yeah, I think the main savings or the main benefit of it is the savings you get from building a brand. Building a brand is very expensive. It's
Hmm.
very time consuming. There's a lot of sort of throwing spaghetti at the wall, seeing what sticks. And I had done that twice, and um, it's a lot. Now I do my own marketing here as well, but I think we do get quite a few people in Houston and the U.S. in general that are like, "Hey, we have Pop Bubble. It's great. We have to come visit." So that is some early like wins, some early traction that I think you don't get from starting from scratch. Um, so that was helpful. Um, the economics of franchises are sometimes well, they're different, right? So Papabubble, for example, doesn't do any marketing in the US, so I don't pay that part of the franchise fee. So typically, on average, franchisees pay 8% of top line revenue,
Hmm.
and that's 4% is the fee, and then 4% goes to like a pool for marketing. And because I don't have that marketing, I just pay the 4%. Um, but yeah, so I mean, that's typically how the economics work.
Sure. So tell me, so you've got you have a firm that does staffing.
Yep.
And now you also have to have staff.
Yeah.
How do you find good people?
It's that, I mean, I think in any business I've been in, the challenging part is always people, or the most challenging part is always people. And I think different businesses require different skill sets, and there are ways to cut through some of the fluff of an interview and get to those questions.
Okay.
So my very first business was lending, and when we would interview marketers, money is a product that everybody wants, and you have to like slice through and find the right people to lend it to, right? Which is counterintuitive when it comes to marketing. Some people could get it, some people didn't, and that's sort of what we were looking at. For my store, for candy, the main thing I'm looking for is creativity and customer service. So, I could teach somebody how to make candy. I can't teach them like a curious nature around like, oh, I wonder if I added this flavor and this flavor. I wonder what it would look like if we did this and this. Or just like the personality to be somebody that like delights in handing somebody something I just made and,
Yes.
action from it, right?
Yes.
So those are like the core things I look for. A lot of the other stuff is just fluff, right? So it those tend to be how I hire. That said, sometimes you're just in a bind and it's like I just need to add people, and sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't. So
Got you. So are there specific questions you ask? Is there like you have like a go-to question that you ask that you can really get out of somebody, customer service?
sometimes I ask them like, what are you excited about making? Tell me about something you're excited to make.
Okay.
What flavors are you interested to try? Like, do you like building things? Do you like explaining when you build things? Getting that kind of, or tell me about a time when. I think those kinds of questions are better than, your standard like yes or no, right? Answers,
Absolutely.
right? A lot of times, early on in my interviewing career, if you will, I found myself leading people a lot in the questions of like, tell me about a time when you did this, like, for example, blah, 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 blah. And then them being like, yeah, yep, I do that. Instead of just like, tell me about a time when you were creative. Tell me about a time when you made something, things like that. And then just allow myself to shut up and listen.
Yeah. Let them talk.
Yeah. And I think some of that is from, both college and business school, but you're very like this. A lot of times in business programs, you're expected to contribute a lot and offer your ideas and not always listen. And I had to coach that out of myself. So,
So what do you look for in a good, you've got your people that are working in the front, but what about a good leader? Whatever you look for in a good leader?
yeah. So I think the main thing I look for in leaders is sort of like an even disposition. So I remember one of my early trading jobs when I was 26 years old, and we had made this trade, and it made something like, it was a huge trade. It made something like $58 million for the hedge fund I was working for, right? And we were all celebrating on the desk. And I remember the fund manager, the president of the company came in. We were like, we just made 58 million. And he's like, great, good work. And then left. And I just remember being like, what was that about? And then, a few months later, we lost a huge amount of money on this trade. And he was like, we were telling him about it. And he's like, okay, well, like figure out what happened and why that happened. And then, don't make that same mistake, right?
Don't do that again. Yeah.
Or, just being like, man, I thought we were going to get killed for that. And I really came to value the idea of like an even disposition or just, personality, because there for every win you have, there's going to be some losses, and I think like just being able to see through, and as long as you're trending upward,
Uh-huh.
you know, the highs and lows are going to happen. You know, I think the trending direction is the main thing that, especially as like the head of an organization, you need to be focused on, and not getting caught up so much in the like huge highs and the low lows, you know?
That's good. Yeah. Level, eye on the long-term goals versus just freaking out about the short term, whether good
Yeah,
or bad, right? Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
So, what's your vision for your business? What's it going to look like when it's done?
I have a few. So, you know, I I'm the majority owner here, but I invested with a lot of my business school friends because
Okay.
I wanted them to have some skin in the game. But ideally, what I would love to do is sort of, I mean, I think one of the best skills you can have as a manager is knowing when to fire yourself. Meaning
Huh.
like I need to take this off my plate and give it to somebody else. And it's hard to do that, especially as an owner. This is my baby, right?
Yes.
So I'm slowly firing myself from like the day to day, focusing more on the strategic. And I think, you know, with my investors, one of my investors works for a private equity firm, and they invest in like portfolios of franchise companies. Um, but they write larger checks, right? So as soon as I can get this Papabubble to break even or profitability, I think we can go and replicate that in other big cities. I think, you know, the from what I'm seeing, I think, you know, your major metropolitan areas or metropolitan, probably like one Papabubble per metro is seems about right.
Okay.
Um, but I mean, ideally, I would like to be managing, you know, 5 to 10 stores. Um, and I think that'd be a lot of fun. You know, if depending on how we get funding, whether we self fund or we get PE funding, like they have different horizons, you know, investment horizons. So that would instruct that. But you know, ideally, I would like to be able to leave my kids with something,
Hmm.
even just an option, right? They don't
Yeah.
have, you know, if they're like, hey, I want to go, I don't know, paint murals on skyscrapers, like great, like that's fine. But I want them to have the option. Um, you know, what was that? In Arrested Development, there's always money in the banana stand, right? Like I want them to know there's always money in the banana stand. Go like go follow like what you're passionate about,
Hmm.
um, and kind of create that safety net, remove the, you know, the risk for them to go and do something that they enjoy and are passionate about. Um, yeah, because I didn't get that, so I want to be able to give it to them.
That's really cool. I love that you're thinking about a legacy for your kids already. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So business school. I feel like a lot of times business school is training people to um, work for people, but maybe not always. Do you feel that way? And then tell me, business working for somebody versus entrepreneurship. I'd love to get your contrast on those two things.
So I went to Georgetown McDonough School of Business. It's their MBA program, and I think so. I think the general reputation for Georgetown is that they're good, like the students from there are good people to work with, not
Okay.
necessarily like the business drivers. That said, our finance program is amazing too. Um, I think for me, the couple things from business school. So a lot of the coursework was actually a review of like my undergrad, right? Because you're with there with students who are business background and non-business background, so they sort of have to. So
Mhm.
I spent a lot of time focusing on less of like the hard skills like finance, accounting, and more of like the things I didn't have a lot of: marketing, entrepreneurship, negotiations, things like that,
Okay.
um, which I've definitely used in my career. Now, that said, I think the most valuable asset I got from my business school program was my network. Um, so I think there's a very specific reason to go, and you know, a if it's going to further your career, but but B, like the network as well, right? So I had a friend that and colleague that went to Harvard, right? And when he needed money or funding, he could pick up the phone and get people to write like $500,000 checks, right? At Georgetown, I could do that and get people to write like $5,000 to $25,000 checks, right? But my point being is like like I said, my friends in college, like from business school, they have a very like wide variety of skills and experiences, and I'm drawing on that a lot to run the business. The other thing, and just as a quick anecdote, but I remember my second year of business school, and I don't know if this is like indicative of Georgetown or business schools in general, but we got a new dean of students, and the dean of students came over from the School of Foreign Service at Georgetown. That's like, it's an amazing School of Foreign Service, probably the best in the U.S., if not the world. And early on, she had met with a couple. I was on student government, and she met with us, and we were like, "Well, how's it going?" And she was like, she's like, "Not great. You guys are such a pain in the butt. I tell you don't do something and you go around me. I tell you that this isn't allowed and you find a way to get around it." She's like, "I don't understand. Like, it's just, it's really frustrating." And, I remember saying to her, I was like, if you think about it though, like that's what we're being trained to do. You're trying to create a market where there is none. You're trying to, you don't want to break laws or go around regulation, right? But you're trying to pilot around it to find your niche. And I think whereas like coming from the School of Foreign Service, it's like highly political and understanding the nuances of culture and things like that. Whereas in business school, you're more of like a broad object, just like, I need to get this done. So that I really valued that part of, and I don't know if that's like Georgetown in general or business school in general, but that's how I found, well, that was one of the core, like best skills I picked up from going there too. So
I love it. So it is quite a contrast that I hadn't really thought about before. Politics or working with foreign governments or whatever that is versus business where you have an obstacle you're trying to go around, over, under, through.
Yeah,
is different.
Exactly. Yep, for sure.
Very contrasting. That's great. I love that. Okay, so tell me, I ask everybody this question. It's very enlightening. If you could do one thing different as you were starting your business, or this can be your staffing business too, the one thing you could do differently if you could go back in time, what would that be?
Probably a boring answer, but I think I would raise more money.
Yeah.
I've found a lot of like the cliches of small business to be true. So, I always heard it takes twice as long and is twice as expensive to get started as you think. And I built that into my model, and I should have doubled that number. So,
wow.
Yeah. So it's just, it does. It's, like in Houston, we're dealing with a lot of, there's like permitting the process is very like behind right now. And there were a couple times I had to like email the mayor. This is the previous mayor, and just be like, "Hey, I'm trying to start a small business. Like, I can't get through this process." I never heard back from him directly, but the next day it would be approved or like pushed forward, or I would hear back on it. Which again, and it's funny, like my architect and the person that filed the permits was like, "You can't do that." And that again, like from business school, where I was like, "Why not? Might as well try, right?" What's the worst thing they could do is like not respond. And so that took longer. And then, with post-COVID, like costs and things like that, it was just more expensive. And I thought I was including that in the, in my model, and it was still more expensive. And then once you're done, like we have a gorgeous store and it's open, and, but then I was left with like no money then to market. Right. So I've had to bootstrap it a bit, and I've slowly built myself some breathing room, and now I can invest in things like that. But that is a delay I didn't factor in either. So, now that said, I think everybody always wants more money for whatever project, right?
Sure.
So yeah, I think if I had done that, I wouldn't have started. Or if I wanted to build like perfect model or have perfect information, I just never would have gotten started. So I think, sometimes 95% is good enough. You just got to go. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of pieces of wisdom there. Number one, I think that you're not the first person that said, yes, it takes more money and time than I originally thought. So that's a good one, because a lot of people run out of funding and they're trying to grind and they're missing out on some ramp up opportunity. But I also 95% good enough, right? It's never going to be perfect. You got to go at some point. And then number 3, don't be afraid to email the mayor. Right?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like, I wasn't rude or anything. I was just like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. I can't hear. I haven't heard back. Like, I need help. I think asking for help is I think when you ask for help, having like a very specific ask is important, because I think, saying, hey, I need help is not helpful, right? It's like, okay. But it's like, hey, I need help, and what that would look like is just asking them to kind of move this forward or tell me what they need. Easy, right? I could do that with a quick email. So, and for not a lot of time for them, huge help for me.
Yes.
I think knowing that and sort of having like a specific ask is super, super helpful.
No, that's good. Asking, people want to help. There's a lot of good people in this world. They want to help. And if you are very specific in your ask, they'll do it for you. Right? That's great.
And even if they can't, like, a quick no is way better than a slow no. Right? Because then it's like, oh, okay, this isn't going to work. I need to do something else, rather than like, oh, this might work. Let me continue pouring time and resources into it, only to find out, no, this isn't going to work. So.
That's awesome. Okay. Probably the last question. Papabubble, what do I come to your place? What do I get? What's my experience? Why am I coming? Give me your
It's 2 things. So, first of all, we try to get, like, if you don't leave with a stomach ache, we haven't done our job. But we're very passionate about what we do. So usually, like, the first thing we usually offer people when they walk in is like, hey, we're making this kind of candy right now. Would you like to try a piece? So whether it's like a hot piece of or a warm piece of candy that we're like physically manipulating at the time, we give people that. If we just made marshmallows, we'll give them. I mean, I've had people come in and say, I don't like marshmallows, and most of the time they're talking about like the marshmallows you get in a store.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like, let me tell you why our marshmallows are different. We make them by hand. It's like it doesn't taste like nothing with rubber, right? It's like, and we can flavor them however we want. Today, like, the flavor of the week this week, last week was mango, this week whatever it is, right? And they're like, oh, mango. And usually they're like, wow, I've never had a marshmallow like that. And that to me is such like a nice feeling of like, hey, this business has really opened up my eyes to like what's out there. But when I can do that for other people too, I really, really like that. Same with our, we do teach like candy classes. So people are like, oh, that'd be so fun to like, is it as satisfying as it looks to chop the candy? Like, totally. By the way, we teach classes and you get a chance to do that. Like, oh, really? That'd be amazing. So, I again, like, as I said, as I hire for that too, like the customer service piece, I want everybody to feel like, ideally, I would like everybody to taste something they've never tried before, and just have a good experience in the store. It's not always perfect. Sometimes, we don't all, I mean, sometimes people are like, man, it's not really my thing, right? but that's helpful too, because like early on we were just hard candy, and some people were like, I don't like hard candy. Okay, well now we have caramels that are soft. We have marshmallows, we have gummies, things like that. It helps to inform your business, and I think the more offerings we have, the more the more A, people can try things, but B, like we have something for everybody. So
That's great. Well, I got to come check it out. I'm super excited. I'll bring
yeah,
my kids and my wife,
please
and
do.
we'll come on over. Okay, so next question, last question. I know you mentioned earlier you're gonna go to Barcelona this year. So when you go there, are you gonna pronounce it Barcelona or Barcelona?
Whatever is not going to get me in trouble, I guess. Yeah, we when we had our candy master come out and like train us for a couple of months, he had some very, very very strong views about Catalonia and Catalonian Spanish, etc. So it's like
I'm sure they'll welcome you with open arms either way. It's a great
yeah,
city, and you're gonna have
I'm
a lot.
excited to go. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. So
That's great. Hey, thank you so much for your time, Jesse. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. You gave me a lot of wisdom today, and I can't wait to share it with people.
cool. All right, thanks, Warren.
Thank you.